Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Rebekah Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan Elrom.
In our top story, an Iranian group led by a radical Islamic cleric has launched a crowdfunding campaign to fund the assassination of U.S. President Donald Trump. The Blood Covenant claims to have raised over $40 million as a bounty for the American commander-in-chief. The Middle East Research Center, or MEMRI, reported that the group's website expressed a call to jihad, inviting Muslim believers to donate their money and sacrifice their lives. MEMRI noted that Iran's religious establishment has increased explicit calls to assassinate President Trump. The Assembly of Expert Members, Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's inner circle, and high-ranking regime clerics have joined the Grand Ayatollahs in issuing fatwas against President Trump, giving Islamic fanatics religious legitimacy for murder.
The Israeli Air Force targeted Syrian troops operating against the Druze population in Suwaida. The IDF took steps to secure southern Syria after the fall of dictator Bashar al-Assad. Jerusalem vowed to protect the Druze people in the region and conducted several military operations in an attempt to demilitarize the area. Recently, Israel Defense Forces identified a convoy of Syrian army vehicles, including tanks, armored personnel carriers, and multiple rocket launchers moving toward the Druze region. The IDF destroyed the convoy and access routes into the city. One of the key issues of the ongoing Syria-Israel peace negotiations is the establishment of a joint border security to prevent weapons smuggling and the buildup of Iranian terror cells stationed near the Golan frontier. The IDF continues to operate in the Syrian buffer zone and announced that it discovered the headquarters of a key Assad regime commando force on Mount Hermon. These outposts, located along the border with Israel, were stocked with military equipment, including 3 tons of weapons, anti-tank mines, explosives, and rockets.
International humanitarian organizations are assisting the Palestinian Authority in stealing parts of Jerusalem by funding illegal Arab construction in the Israeli capital. Regavim is a non-governmental organization that monitors land and sovereignty issues in the Jewish state. It released an explosive report on this internationally funded, illegal land grab. According to Regavim, the PA is using UN and EU aid to fund rampant, unpermitted construction throughout Jerusalem. More than $10.5 million provided by the UN has been used as compensation payouts to create facts on the ground in the Holy City. The PA is also funding extensive legal battles meant to flood the Israeli courts with appeals and countersuits to demolition orders. Naomi Khan, director of Regavim's international division, said, instead of holding the PA accountable for its obligations under international law, the United Nations has been complicit in violating the law, not just in Judea, Samaria, and Gaza, but also in Jerusalem.
Egyptian officials have threatened to break the peace treaty with Israel. The Egyptian military has conducted a massive buildup of troops and weapons in the Sinai Desert in violation of the Camp David Accords. They have prevented Gazans from fleeing Hamas. Egyptian President Abdel al-Sisi flatly rejected President Trump's proposal to absorb some of the refugees. After the October 7th Hamas attacks on Israel, the IDF moved in to secure the Rafah border crossing with Egypt, sparking tensions with Cairo. Now, Jerusalem is considering the construction of a humanitarian camp in the area. Egyptian officials warned they view any Israeli military presence in the Rafah area as a threat to Egyptian national security.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced sanctions against UN Human Rights Council Special Rapporteur for the Palestinians, Francesca Albanese. Rubio confirmed that Albanese directly engaged with the International Criminal Court in efforts to investigate, arrest, detain, and prosecute U.S. and Israeli citizens without consent. Rubio noted that neither the United States nor Israel are party to the Rome Statute, making her actions a gross infringement on the sovereignty of both countries. From her post as UN rapporteur, Francesca Albanese has become notorious for her anti-Israel and anti-Semitic bias while supporting Arab terrorism. The Secretary of State deemed her a specially designated national and barred all U.S. companies and citizens from doing business with her. This move has caused shockwaves in the disgraced United Nations. Last week, all 3 members of a UN commission tasked with investigating Israel simultaneously resigned.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams has signed an economic cooperation agreement between his city and Israel. Nir Barkat, Israel's Minister of Economic Affairs, has been working with Mayor Adams to form the New York City Israel Economic Council. This program will work to strengthen ties between New York and Jerusalem in a variety of fields, including artificial intelligence, climate tech, and more. Unfortunately, this relationship may be in jeopardy after New York's Democratic Party endorsed anti-Israel candidate Zohran Mamdani for mayor. New York City is home to the world's largest Jewish community outside of Israel. Sadly, it became a breeding ground for anti-Jewish incitement in the aftermath of the October 7th attack by Hamas. Campuses were overrun by pro-Palestinian activists, and Jews were violently assaulted. Anti-Semitic attacks in New York City have skyrocketed, and Mamdani's nomination has given Jews in the Big Apple and the Jewish state even greater cause for concern.
Charles Kushner has taken up his official post as U.S. ambassador to France and Monaco and has vowed to fight anti-Semitism from Paris. Kushner is Ivanka Trump's father-in-law and grandfather to 3 of President Trump's grandchildren. His appointment as U.S. ambassador was confirmed by the Senate in May. Kushner announced that his first order of business will be to fight anti-Semitism. He visited the local Holocaust Museum in Paris, saying, "As a child of Holocaust survivors and a representative of the greatest country in the world, visiting the Memorial de la Shoah is deeply personal." He said the memory of the Holocaust demands vigilance, and fighting anti-Semitism will be at the heart of my mission.
The Anti-Defamation League Center for Anti-Semitism has released a troubling report revealing that 24% of Americans feel anti-Semitic attacks are understandable. Jew hatred has skyrocketed across the United States since the Hamas attacks on October 7, 2023. The survey was conducted just days after the despicable terror attack in Boulder, Colorado, where a peaceful demonstration for Israeli hostages was firebombed by a pro-Hamas terrorist. 1 person was killed and 15 were wounded. The ADL study reflected that 22% of Americans did not believe the attacks were anti-Semitic, and 13% felt they were justified.
The Jewish state has successfully launched its most advanced communications satellite into space. Israel Aerospace Industries announced that the Dror 1 took off from Cape Canaveral, Florida, on a SpaceX Falcon 9 2-stage rocket. This sophisticated satellite is programmed to orbit Earth once every 30 hours. It is equipped with smartphone in space capabilities, providing communications flexibility for the duration of its operation. Developed by IAI and based on blue and white technology, this satellite will carry an advanced digital payload and will serve Israel's communication needs for the next 15 years.
Israeli scientists have made a historic breakthrough in global medicine by developing the world's first vaccine against the deadly bacterium that causes the Black Plague. The Yersinia pestis bacteria causes the bubonic plague, a devastating illness that killed about 2/3 of Europe's population in the Middle Ages. The bacteria causes severe infections and can spread to the bloodstream, resulting in sepsis. Researchers at Tel Aviv University and the Israel Institute for Biological Research have developed a vaccine that helps the immune system to recognize Yersinia pestis and defend against it.
Israeli para-athlete Guy Sasson and his partner Niles Van Wonk have won the Wimbledon quad doubles tennis tournament. This is the duo's second Grand Slam title this year. In 2015, Sasson suffered a devastating spinal injury, leaving him paralyzed. After extensive rehabilitation, he began playing wheelchair tennis competitively. Last year, Sasson won the bronze medal at the 2024 Paris Paralympics. After that historic win, he dedicated his victory to Israel and the hostages held by Hamas in Gaza. This time, Sasson dedicated his win to the people of Israel. During a post-match interview with the BBC, Sasson quoted the biblical book of Numbers, chapter 23, verse 24, saying, "The people shall rise up as a great lion. Am Yisrael chai, the people of Israel live."
That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, and we're here in our beautiful studio in Jerusalem. My guest today is Tila Falic Levy. She's an Israel activist and the newly appointed member of the World Zionist Congress. Tila, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Josh.
First off, tell us a little about what is the World Zionist Congress?
The World Zionist Congress was established by Theodor Herzl 100 plus years ago, and originally it was actually Jews and non-Jews that had one common goal and one purpose, and that was to promote the values of having a state of Israel for Jews in Israel. Many people, when you ask them what Zionism is, they say just like Jews wanting Israel. But it happens to be, it's very important to say that it's in Israel. And it was started then by him. It's changed over the years in many different ways. Today, what it really represents is most of the Jewish organizations that come together under one organization, and that's the World Zionist Congress. Basically what it is all the organizations have a certain amount of money that they allocate to all different kinds of causes across Israel and the Jewish world. And specifically now what happened this year was that the right wing and the Judeo-Christian values, biblical Jews, came back with a force and have taken a very strong stance and a strong position within the World Zionist Congress to allocate those funds, which is about $2 billion a year, to be able to find a cause that they agree with. And I joined Israel 365, and I'm their number one delegate.
It's very interesting. You're the head of this new movement within the World Zionist Congress, and the two things you focus on are Judea and Samaria and building ties with Bible-believing Christians. Why are those two things so important?
To me personally, they're important because I understand the value of, number one, our claim as Jews to the homeland being biblical, and number two, because there's power in numbers. We don't have enough Jews. We don't have enough friends. And people that understand the value of biblical claims to this land are our evangelical friends. And it's very important to have relationships with people who actually love us. Jews constantly are talking about fighting anti-Semitism and trying to promote Jewish values. But when you have friends that are putting out their hand and really want to be your friend and understand the value of the biblical homeland of the Jewish people, we need to embrace those relationships. So to me, those are two very important platforms as a Jew living in the United States, but also as a Jew that's involved here in Israel. And I thought it was very important to join a group that understand that too.
You were just recently appointed by President Trump to sit on the Holocaust Memorial Board, I believe it is. Why is that important in today's time?
The museum board in general, what they do is promote the values of the Holocaust education and learning about our past. Today, I think that's so much more important than ever because we actually lived through a day like October 7th, where for the first time we are seeing that kind of hate and anti-Semitism actually turn into something real. It's not just people calling on hating Jews, it's actually acting on hating Jews. I don't like to compare anything to the Holocaust. I think the Holocaust is the Holocaust. And there's nothing that has ever happened that is exactly like that, where people are systematically being killed. But the intention is one thing, and then acting upon that is another. And when you have people that actually acted one day upon those horrible feelings against a certain group of people, and us being Jews, it's important to draw that parallel to be able to stop it from happening again and educating people on what real hate looks like. There's nowhere where it's acceptable to kill people, to hurt people because of their beliefs.
We were just at a very interesting meeting at the White House for Jewish leadership. It was a Jewish leadership briefing. But the traditional Jewish organizations, ADL, AIPAC, AJC, they weren't invited to this meeting. It was more of a conservative, religious group of Jewish leaders. Why the change?
I think there's a comeback in faith. Whether it's Christian faith, even Muslim faith, or Jewish faith, something's happening that people are searching for spirituality. And that spirituality manifests in different ways. For Jews and Christians, it's very similar because we all believe in the same Old Testament. Everybody has their faith, and as long as people are understanding that there's something bigger than us, and there's something greater, and there's a bigger power, we call that God, and you and I believe in the same God, but I think many people are searching for that. So when people are soul searching, or they're looking for meaning, or looking for spirituality, and especially even after October 7th here in Israel, I see a lot of young people that are all of a sudden keeping Shabbat, or wearing tzitzit, or going back to like biblical faith. I think it's coming back because people felt a sense of emptiness. Now, when it comes to the Jewish leadership, I don't want to call out any specific organization. I think people are just disappointed. So much money, so much Jewish philanthropy has gone into these groups, and these groups have failed us. I even feel like we have failed as a Jewish group when you have Jewish students marching for Students of Justice of Palestine. That should not be. All these organizations that have been notoriously the Jewish philanthropic organizations have done a wonderful job in whatever they've done. I don't want to criticize anybody, but now things have changed. People actually want to have their boots on the ground, hands in the field, want to be working in the actual philanthropy or the actual cause. So when the White House invited us to go, it was a really remarkable experience because for me, I keep hearing the noise of the media of like all the horrible things that are going on and the campuses and how much Jews are hated everywhere and how we're being attacked and spit on and burning synagogues and things like that. And then you go there and you think no one's doing anything, but they are. So we heard from the Department of Justice. We heard from the Department of Education. We heard from the Faith Office. We have people on our side. Nobody in America wants anybody to be living hate or living through these terrible crimes of humanity.
Tila, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
I would say get involved, visit Israel, and educate yourself on what's important against hate, loving and being proud of who you are, and the Judeo-Christian values have a place in society. Let's celebrate them because that's what brings us together.
Thank you, Tila, for being on the show, and thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
And now the truth from Zion.
The Boko Haram jihadist group has terrorized Nigeria since its founding in 2002. Boko Haram, literally translated, means Westernization is sacrilege, referring to the group's rejection of modern society and secular education. Also known as the Nigerian Taliban, this terror army's credo is holy war or jihad. This radical Sunni faction of Islamic extremists has waged war against Christians, Shiite Muslims, and Nigerian civil servants in an attempt to overthrow the government and establish an Islamic state ruled by strict Sharia law. The group's founder, Muhammad Yusuf, instituted a bloody campaign of attacks. He was killed by security forces in 2009. After his death, the group remained inactive until Yusuf's deputy, Abu Bakr Shekau, released a video declaring his leadership over Boko Haram. Shekau ordered a series of assassinations and terrorist attacks to assert his control. On Christmas Eve of 2010, Boko Haram terrorists laid siege to 2 churches and detonated explosives in Christian neighborhoods. In 2011, a suicide bomber attacked a United Nations building, killing 23 people. The Boko Haram campaign of terror became more coordinated and more sophisticated. In 2012, simultaneous attacks on the city of Kano claimed the lives of 185 people. Boko Haram has taken over northeastern Nigeria by raping, pillaging, burning, and destroying any community that does not conform to its beliefs. Boko Haram has preyed on the innocent Christian population of Africa making them the victims of a holy war against the infidels. It views Western education as a sin and has justified the slaughter of hundreds of teachers and students. This Islamic terrorist group operates in Nigeria, Chad, Niger, northern Cameroon, and Mali. Its fanatic interpretation of Islam allows terrorists free rein to slay anyone who does not declare Muhammad as the prophet and Sunni Islam as the supreme religion. The Vatican estimates that more than 50,000 Christians have been martyred by the Islamic terror group since it began in 2009. The Vatican also claims the radical Islamic group has torched more than 1,800 churches across the West African nation. Experts refer to the slaughter of the Christians in Africa as the silent genocide due to the Western world's inaction for the plight of their Christian African brothers and sisters. The murder of Christians in Africa is happening on a daily basis, but many do not know that it is occurring because these massacres are often ignored by the international news media. The Christians of Africa have suffered immensely under the reign of terror by Boko Haram, which is mainly funded by kidnapping schemes, bank robberies, and extortion. Open Doors is a Christian nonprofit organization that attempts to raise awareness of the plight of persecuted Christians around the world. It notes that Nigeria has become the epicenter of targeted violence against the church. Nearly half of Nigeria's population is Christian, but the Islamic population has asserted dominance over them. Christians are treated as dhimmis or second-class citizens. While some Christian groups have attempted to raise awareness of the plight of Nigerian Christians, others do nothing because they lack any knowledge of the situation. But this is little comfort to Nigerian Christians, whose children are being kidnapped by Islamic gunmen and sold into slavery. In 2014, Boko Haram abducted 200 Nigerian schoolgirls and announced that they would become slaves. It also declared an Islamic caliphate in areas of Nigeria under its control. It was at this point the group broke ties with al-Qaeda and officially pledged allegiance to the Islamic State terror group. They continued to attack and enslave innocents in a desperate attempt to widen their control of the country, striking fear into the hearts of all Nigerians and humanitarian aid workers. Amnesty International has estimated that more than 2,000 civilians are being held captive as the terrorist group wages its relentless campaign of killings, abductions, and looting. More Christians are killed for their faith in Nigeria than in all other countries of the world combined. The people of Israel know this barbarism all too well.
Hamas attacks Jews in Israel, while Boko Haram attacks Christians in Africa, but their aim for Islamic domination is the same.
What Islam calls the people of the book are under attack around the world. Jews and Christians need to stand together to defend their shared Judeo-Christian values. Up next, the ICEJ Report from the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem.
ICEJ is passionate about offering practical help and life-changing opportunities to those in need in every sector of Israeli society. Since Israel's war with Hamas began, Israeli citizens have been negatively impacted economically, with many business owners losing more than 50% of their monthly income. This makes it difficult to keep their business afloat and to provide for their families. Government compensation offers insufficient relief for small businesses, many that are operated by women. The situation is even more complicated for those evacuated from their homes, far away from their customer base. To help alleviate these challenges, the ICEJ is sponsoring business mentorship and giving grants to help small businesses succeed, even in these challenging times.
Since 1980, the International Christian Embassy Jerusalem has been a voice of Christian support for Israel and connected the global church to the land of the Bible. Headquartered in Jerusalem, the ICEJ has taken action to stand with Israel by caring for Holocaust survivors, helping Jewish families return home to Israel, providing bomb shelters, fighting anti-Semitism around the world, and by inviting Christians to discover Israel for themselves.
אני ירין לב, בת 24. אני הקמתי את העסק שלי לפני 7 חודשים עם הערוץ שלי, נתנאל כהן, הוא בן 27, אני בת 24. הקמנו את זה מאהבה מאוד גדולה לתחום. הבן זוג שלי 11 שנים בתחום הפיצות, הפסטות, הסלטים, קינוחים ועוד. הקמנו את זה, כמו שאמרתי, לפני 7 חודשים. פתחנו את זה במקום חדש, כאן אצלנו בעיר באופקים. אנחנו ממש מרגישים מיום ליום שהדבר הזה היה מאוד חסר בעיר שלנו. בעיקרון המלחמה הגיעה בדיוק עם פתיחת העסק, אז כן היה אתגר, זה היה מאוד קשוח, אז ניסינו כמה שיותר לפרסם ברשתות החברתיות עם כמה שאפשר, אבל בסופו של דבר אנחנו מנסים כל יום להתעלות על הדבר הזה שקרה לנו. אני אספר שנייה רגע סיפור אישי שקרה לי במלחמה, ממש 5 ימים לפני המלחמה, זאת אומרת ב2 לאוקטובר, אני עברתי לבית הזה, והבית הקודם שלי זה זה שנכנסו אליו. ב2 לאוקטובר אני עזבתי אותו, וממש נכנסו אליו, ולא משנה, האנשים שהיו שם לא בחיים ולא איתנו, וניצלתי, וזה פשוט לקרוע גומל, כאילו הבדל של 5 ימים שעברתי לכאן, ופה באופקים חווינו על הבשר שלנו משהו שלא חווינו אף פעם, זה היה פשוט מטורף. 50 אנשים שקרובים אלינו נרצחו, זה בשכונה כאילו שנחשבת מאוד 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 מיוחדת. וואו, מנסים לעכל את מה שקרה. בעיקרון, כל פעם שפנו אלינו זה היה מין שמחה כזו, שזה עוזר לנו גם, וגם עוזר לחיילים שלנו, למי ששומר עלינו. זה באמת באמת עזר לנו. התקוות בעזרת השם זה לפתוח עוד סניפים, להתפתח יותר בתחום, אולי להפוך גם למסעדה, כרגע זה טייק-אווי יותר, וזהו. קודם כל זה ממש מרגש ומחמם את הלב, שעוזרים ותומכים ויודעים ומכירים, ובאמת זה ממש מרגש אותנו. רק תודה רבה לכם ושתמשיכו כך, זה מרגש מאוד.
After Hamas brutally attacked Israel on October the 7th, 2023, the ICEJ has been actively standing with Israel and her people through advocacy and urgently needed aid projects. Now is the time for Christians to turn their love for Israel and the Jewish people into real action as never before. Your donation will help deliver bomb shelters to at-risk areas, provide necessary supplies for first responders, support affected citizens with trauma care, and will eventually help rebuild these devastated communities. Visit ICEJUSA.tv to donate online or call 1-800-910-6355 and give your generous gift today.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Rebekah Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan Elrom, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.